It was in the summer of 2012 that me, my friend, and my grandparents decided we'd go on a camping trip. Summer had just started, and I had just gotten out of middle school when we decided to take my friend Ben along on our yearly camping trip. I'm not sure how many families do this, but ours, almost every summer, goes on a camping trip to Yosemite National Park. It really is a beautiful place, and my friend had been wanting for a long time to come with us. I thought it was about time. We headed down there on a Saturday, and after the long drive, checked in and set up camp. We were staying in the Upper Pines campground. After setting up camp, getting food into Bear Locker, and looking around the campgrounds a bit, my grandma told us that she needed to see something important. She took us down to one of the loops in the campsite. If you've ever been camping, you know what I mean, and took us to the start of a backpacking trail. It went away from the campground and into the woods, and it was surrounded by dense trees, bushes, rocks, etc. If you ever go near this trail, you will both be in serious trouble. I asked what the big deal was, and she gave me this typical "because I said so," which I hate. This Q&A went on for a long while, and she didn't give up. Me and my friend both talked about our crazy theories on what my grandma and grandpa were hiding from us. But it wasn't very unusual. My grandma is obsessed with safety. We both shrugged it off until later in the week when we were both reminded to never go near the trail. Then, towards the end of our stay, we had 2 more days until we had to leave. It was a Friday. We were leaving Saturday. Me and Ben had been annoyed by the whole "stay away from the trail" quote and decided that the next day we'd pull the classic rebellious kid act and sneak into the trail. Because it was our last 2 days, my grandparents planned a ridiculous amount of activities for us all to do. So, our idea of going in when it was light out was officially canceled. So, after that night, after the campfire and cooking awesome s'mores was finished, we waited till my grandparents were asleep. Me and Ben had one tent, while my parents had another, and they were a good distance away. But Yosemite has a quiet hour rule from 10 at night through 6 in the morning, so we'd have to be very quiet about getting out of our tents, which is easier said than done. And we'd need flashlights. It's pitch black at night because of no regular lights. That night, around 3 in the morning, we set off to go down that trail. We quietly left our campsite, and when far enough away, we turned on our flashlights. We walked for a while. Our campsite was not close to the entrance of the trail, and after a bit, we finally arrived at the mythical entrance. We both had our phones on us, but no way were we getting any service. We started down the trail, which at night looked fairly creepy. Not only is it in the middle of the night, but the dense trees made you feel isolated. After continuing for a few minutes, Upper Pines was out of sight. Me and my friend made jokes, tried to scare each other, messed around, and all of that stuff friends normally do. But after a bit of what seemed like going nowhere, we came upon a bridge. Under the bridge was the river that followed near Upper Pines. While going onto it and looking down the river, we heard something. It sounded like bushes rustling behind us, and in the creepy setting, we both jumped and shot our flashlights towards it. I think for a second both me and Ben's stomachs dropped. Some teenage boy, dark hair and a hoodie on, maybe 14 or 15, was behind a tree. Me and Ben were around that age, so didn't think of it as a big deal. "Dude, get that fucking light out of my face!" "Dude, What are you doing down here? It's 3 in the morning, Ben said. Just relax, all right? Just keep fucking walking. The kid seemed pissed off for some reason. After that, he quickly turned around and walked into the woods. This was weird. Why in the hell, in 3 in the morning, is some kid down here? And now walking into a dense forest. We made sure he was gone, and right as we were leaving, my friend pointed something strange out. There was what looked like a very rusted and ruined gasoline tank directly under the bridge. This was strange, only because of how everyone tried to keep the forest insanely clean. It also looked burned, which was odd. Then, as we continued, we found another. This one was placed behind a tree, almost hidden. After continuing, we just assumed someone had used this dense trail to dump some trash, and I guess no one ever noticed. But after walking a little more, we came up to a small clearing. This clearing was a small flat area, had tons of trees surrounding it, and the strangest part, an old truck and what looked like an old and beat-up Airstream trailer. Is this where the trail was leading to? We didn't know, but we decided that it might be best to take a turn at this point. We find some rocks to sit on and rest on before continuing walking back. The clearing was strange, only because this was a backpacking trail. You'd think it'd just continue into the mountains. After resting and inspecting the area, I saw that past this clearing, the trail continued. But what's even stranger is that this person seemed to have made this area their own little campsite. How the person got through the dense woods into here is beyond me. Won't this guy get in serious trouble if a ranger catches him? Ben asked. Yeah, he would, but that's his problem. We decided after a bit that we should head back. As we were just leaving the clearing, a man came out of the torn-up trailer. He had a dark red beanie on and barely any facial hair. Couldn't see much of his face, and I remember the jacket being torn up a bit too. He had jeans on as well, probably because of how cold it can get. The police asked me for a specific description, so this is all memorized because I had to say it so many times. Me and my friend turned around, facing him. He had a serious look on his face, but the second we faced him, he made a slight smile. You boys looking for some trouble tonight? The man asked with a slight grin. Not at all, sir. Just taking a stroll. Yeah, right. At 3:30 in the morning? I could understand his suspicion. 2 teenagers out in the woods. It made perfect sense. Sorry to disturb you, sir, but no, we aren't doing anything. In fact, we're planning on leaving. The man stepped forward a bit, and I noticed that he was holding a gasoline tank, identical to the ones we saw by the bridge. That wasn't my question, young man. It was, are you looking for trouble? Confused, I replied. Sorry, sir, but no, we're not looking for any kind of trouble, and we're leaving now. As we turned around and began walking, the man returned to his trailer. We continued walking, talking about our conversation with him, and thought about his strange question. Are you looking for trouble? Weird. But 2 or 3 minutes after leaving the clearing, we heard footsteps crunching behind us. We turned around and shone our flashlights, only to see the man standing there. Hey there, boys, he said, still with a serious expression. I have some blankets if you're cold. Where are the blankets? Ben asked. In my trailer, he replied, with now a cold look in his eyes. Yeah, me and Ben had seen enough horror movies to know what to do. We turned around and kept walking, now keeping one eye behind us both. It was at that point that my idiotic brain just had a revelation. We were alone in the middle of the woods, too far out for anyone to hear us, and there was some guy following us. Fantastic. If only I thought of this earlier. Me and Ben continued to walk, and the man continued as well. At that point, we began walking faster. The man after a second did so too. Then we started to go faster. The man followed behind. This went on for several scary as hell minutes. After a few minutes, Ben, terrified, had great news to tell me. "Dude, that creepy guy has a knife," Ben said with a shaky voice. "What? Don't fuck around. I really don't need jokes. Dude, this guy has a knife." I turned around for a quick glance, only to confirm my fears. The man, in his right hand, was now holding a large kitchen knife. But now, the worst part. He started walking extremely fast, not even close to mimicking us anymore. At that point, we ran like hell. "Dude, run!" Ben yelled. We both booked it, and so did the man. Our danger modes in both of us kicked in, and we slowly got further away from the guy, with the trees a blur beside us, because there was no way in hell that I was going to actually stop and see how far he was. We eventually started to slow down and could hear leaves crunching not too far behind. But a miracle came to us when we both came to the bridge we stopped at. I had an idea for our escape, but it had to be quick. "Hurry, run off the trail, now!" I told Ben. Without any hesitation, we jumped off the bridge and ran into the dense woods. We turned our flashlights off and stumbled over rocks, jumped over fallen trees, and tripped constantly. And when Ben had tripped in the pitch-black darkness of the forest and had fallen face first into a large rock, I helped him up as quickly as possible, and we sat behind it. Sure enough, there was only silence. We sat there for a while, for what felt like forever, and eventually we realized we had no idea where we had just ran to. "Shit, where the hell are we? Can we just turn on the flashlights?" Ben, out of breath, asked. "I think he's gone. Let me look first." I stood up and looked around. There was no one I could see from the outline of the darkness. All there was trees as far as the eyes could see, but to our left, ways down, was what looked like the light from a tent. "I think that there may be a campsite down there. We need to get someone." We clicked on our flashlights and ran down there, now stumbling over everything. When we came into the campsite, we discovered that, to our joy, it was Upper Pines. We were only a loop away from our campsite, so we ran over, shook my grandparents out of their tent screaming, and explained. My grandparents got someone from another campsite, and we went to get rangers, who later got a hold of the cops. We went down and repeated our stories over and over again. And when they went to investigate further, not only had we woken up almost all the people in the campground, but the man was gone. There were some things left behind: tire marks, nails, a hammer, and a lot of trash. We left one day early. After that, me and Ben were grounded for a long time, and we didn't complain or protest. Last year, we went there and, according to the rangers, they now have had rangers on a regular patrol at night since the incident. I went camping again last year, and instead of night, we just went during the day down the trail. There were lots of people on it, so much less dangerous. We also asked if they planned to make any changes, and they said they're planning on taking off the clearing and just continuing the dirt trail. It was only when, recently, I had decided to ask my parents why they were so reluctant to let us go down the trail in the first place. According to them, and Google, there had been bodies found from a murder case off the mountains where the trail continued. It was then that I thought I should post this story. I'm going again this summer, and me and Ben will take our annual trip down the horrific trail.